Hello everybody and welcome to the first in a series of videos which will be exploring a topic that we call market failure. So this is linked to theme 1.3 of the specification. You can see here 1.3 of the specification. So what we're going to be looking at in this topic is something called market failures, and then we're going to be looking at different types of market failures. These will be something that we call externalities, public goods, and information gaps. Right, so let's think first of all then about what a market failure actually is. Now in 1.2 of the specification we were exploring the free market economy. So we were looking at how supply and demand will interact within a market to determine the price and the quantity in that particular marketplace. So what we learned was, well, when people consume, they're doing so to satisfy wants and needs. So when you demand goods and services, you receive utility or satisfaction. And when firms supply goods and services, they're doing so to generate as much profit as possible. And what we knew was that when we have excess demand in a marketplace, price levels will increase to clear the market. If we've got excess supply, then price levels need to go down in order to clear the market. Well, what we're going to be learning about in this topic is how the free market economy can fail. In other words, how the price mechanism can fail to lead to an optimal allocation of resources in a marketplace. So a market failure then, everyone, is where the price mechanism, so where supply and demand, leads to a misallocation of resources. Now you can see on the screen here 4 different problems this can create in markets. It can lead to some products being oversupplied or overconsumed. It can lead to some products being undersupplied or therefore underconsumed. It can lead to some prices being too high, some prices being too low, and it can also lead to some products not being provided at all. So in each of these 4 different cases here, the price mechanism is not fulfilled its main purpose. In other words, it is not maximised economic welfare. So another way of thinking about a market failure is where the price mechanism is not maximising economic welfare. One of these 4 different reasons given here. Now, what we will be exploring in this series of videos are 3 main types of market failure: externalities, public goods, and something we call imperfect information. Now, what we're going to be looking at in this video is something that we call public good market failure. Okay, now let's think first of all, before we worry about public goods, what we mean by a private good. Now, a private good is both rival and excludable. Now look at the definition of rival and excludable. So rival, the consumption of a good or service by one consumer will reduce the availability for another consumer. Excludable, individuals can be excluded, prevented from consuming a good or a service, for example by price or entry criteria. Now look at that photograph in the top left-hand picture on this slide. You've got here a football stadium. Now a football stadium is a private good. There's a limited capacity inside a football ground, which means if somebody takes up a seat, there is less seats available for somebody else to benefit from. A football stadium is also excludable. If you don't pay the ticket price to get inside that stadium, then you will be excluded from benefiting from that football game. Now, private goods, in other words, products that are both rival and excludable, will be provided in a free market economy. The reason why is it's possible to generate profit from these products. So if a football team wants to generate an income from charging people to come inside their stadium, they can. And that is because it's rival and excludable. So in other words, the consumption by one person reduces the availability for somebody else, but also it's excludable. If people don't pay to come in, then they cannot benefit from that football game. So in other words, firms can generate revenue from private goods. Another example, whilst I'm talking to you this morning, I'm drinking a cup of coffee. Well, coffee is both rival and excludable. My consumption of this coffee will reduce somebody else from benefiting from this cup of coffee. It's also excludable. If I hadn't paid for the coffee beans from the shop yesterday, then I wouldn't be able to consume this cup of coffee. Now, the vast majority of products that you will buy will be private goods. So when you go to the cinema, it's a private good. When you go to a restaurant for some food, again, it's a private good. Travelling on a bus is a private good. Holidays are private goods. So private goods are not the market failure in question here. The market failure we've got is something called public good market failure. Now, public goods are both non-rival and non-excludable. Now, look at the definitions of what this means. Non-rival, the consumption of a good or service by one consumer will not reduce the availability for another consumer. Non-excludable, individuals cannot be excluded or prevented from consuming a good or a service. Right, okay, now the problem then with public goods could be that firms are not able to generate an income from these products. Remember, firms in a free market economy will supply things in order to generate profit. If we cannot charge people for these products, then there is no way of generating an income. Now, let me give you some examples to back up what this stuff actually means. So if we think about public goods, we could argue that street lights are public goods. So think about why street lighting is both non-rival and non-excludable. Now, the non-excludable part is easy enough, first of all. There is no way for a business to generate an income from street lights. What we cannot do is restrict access to street lights to people that have paid and exclude people that haven't paid for that particular product. There is no real way that that can possibly happen. Now, what that means then is that other people can then just piggyback on the back of other people's consumption. So what we do is, if we wait for somebody else to provide street lights, we can benefit from their production of those street lights and therefore not pay. Now, this is creating what we call a free rider problem. So what we're saying here is people can benefit from a good or a service, in other words, gain utility from it without having to pay for it. And this will therefore mean that firms cannot extract any profit from public goods and therefore will not produce public goods. So other examples could be flood defences. Now, when you think about it, if we were to build flood defences on a river, it will protect the people that live in that particular town or city. Now, those flood defences are both non-rival and non-excludable. There is no way of building those flood defences that they will only benefit the people that have paid towards them and exclude the people that haven't contributed towards them. So what that means then is it's non-rival. Once those flood defences are protecting somebody's house, they will automatically be protecting somebody else's house as well. And that can create a free rider problem. Now, other products which also have got some of the characteristics of being a public good, we've got flood defences, we've got street lighting, we could argue lighthouses can also be public goods. Think about what a lighthouse does. It means that when boats come into a harbour, it helps them see where the rocks are and where the coastline is. So it guides the ship safely into the harbours and ports across the world. Now, once that street light, once those lighthouses have been provided, everyone can benefit for free from them. So that will raise the question: why bother paying for something when you can use it for free? So again, a firm in a free market economy would not want to produce these types of products. Many people would also argue that the armed forces are an example of a public good. So again, once the armed forces are provided, whether you've paid or not, you will benefit from the safety and protection that the armed forces produce, whether you've paid or not. So again, what you can do here is to free ride. So benefit from someone else's consumption of public goods. So guys, a pure public good, a product which is non-rival and excludable, will actually lead to what we call a missing market in economics. These products would not be provided at all because the firms that want to provide them would not be able to generate profit from them. So guys, public goods are both non-rival, non-excludable, and if the product ticks this category, then firms would not produce them. Well, that would therefore mean that people that benefit from them would derive no benefits from them whatsoever because they wouldn't exist. So in a pure free market economy, everyone, public goods would not exist. So all the benefits that people would get from these products, well, there would be no benefit because these products would not exist. So that would mean in a free market economy, potentially there would be no street lighting, There would be no flood defences. There would be no armed forces. That could maybe limit how much police there are on the streets as well. Now, a really, really good example as well. On my way into work yesterday, the roads had been gritted. Now, think about what that grit does. The grit on the roads will mean that I can ride my car safely without the risk of ice on the roads. So every car on those roads will derive benefits from the roads being gritted. But again, you could argue that that grit that's been put on the road is an example of a public good. Once that grit has been put on the road, there is no way of preventing people from benefiting for free. It's not excludable. We cannot put grit on the roads that only benefits people that have paid and doesn't benefit people that haven't paid. So again, what this will create is a free rider problem, where some people can benefit from this product without having to pay for it. That is why you tend to find, everyone, that public goods have to be produced by the government. Okay, so remember, Britain's a mixed economy. Well, this will therefore mean that in a British style economy, public goods have to be provided out of taxpayers' money. Otherwise, the free market economy would not want to produce these things at all. Right, everyone, I now want you to think about these questions. So A, we're thinking here about private goods. So have a go at defining the following: private good, rival and excludable. If you can think examples of products that tick these categories, that would help your understanding of this concept. And then B, we're looking at public goods. So what do you mean by a public good? What does non-rival, non-excludable mean? And what does the free rider problem mean? Again, if you can link that to examples, it will really, really help your understanding of these concepts. Right, now on this slide here, you've got a bit more information on examples of products which tick the categories of private goods and public goods. So look what you've got under private goods. Food, utilities and housing would all be examples of private goods. They're excludable because if you don't pay for them, then ultimately you can not benefit from them. So if you don't pay Sainsbury's for food, you can't eat their food. Well, that therefore means if you want to consume their food, you've got to pay for it. Utilities, electricity, gas, again, if you don't pay for it, then power supplies can be cut off. If you don't pay for housing through your mortgage or rent, again, you will be evicted from that property. So if you want to benefit from these products, then you've got to pay. It's worth noting though as well that we can also exclude people from benefiting from certain products, not just by charging them. It could be by some kind of entry criteria. So college, for example, is excludable. If people don't meet certain GCSE requirements or attendance or punctuality conditions, then they can be excluded from benefiting from it. These products, though, as well, are also rival. So when they're consumed by one person, the supply available for someone else will diminish. Okay, so if you take food off the shelf in Sainsbury's, well, that's less food that other people can buy. So remember that private goods will exist in a free market economy. Firms can produce these things and generate profit, which is what we assume firms want to achieve in a free market economy. The problem is, though, in a free market economy is that public goods will not be provided. And you've got the examples here that I mentioned before: street lighting, lighthouses, flood defences and national defence. So once these things are provided, it's extremely difficult, or it's just not cost effective, to stop people benefiting from them for free. They're non-excludable. So once street lighting is provided, how do we exclude people that haven't paid for it? Well, very, very difficult to do. Once the armed forces have been provided, well, we all benefit from that security that they provide for us, whether we've paid or not. It's not really cost effective to prevent people who haven't paid from benefiting from it. Now, next thing here, consumption by one person doesn't prevent other people from consuming these products. So what we're saying here then is that public goods are also non-rival. So when you think about it, the armed forces, if they're overseas reducing terrorist activity, then when they provide benefits for one person, it's automatically creating benefits for other people as well. It's non-rival. So guys, public goods are both non-rival and non-excludable. So public goods are therefore creating the overall risk of market failure because of the free rider problem. People will not pay for them because they can't be excluded from benefiting for free, but also the non-rival. So once they've been provided for one person, you can benefit from what they've bought without paying for it. So the idea would be, in a free market economy, firms would not be able to generate sufficient revenues to earn profit from these products. So that would therefore mean that a pure public good would not be produced at all within a free market economy. So guys, private goods would be provided, but public goods would not be provided because of the free rider problem. Right, just to wrap up this theory video, then you've got here question 2A, 2B and 2C. So 2A, explain using examples why firms within a free market economy will produce private goods. So think about the profit motive. B, explain using examples why firms within a free market will not produce pure public goods, or they will underproduce goods which tick some of the characteristics of public goods. So think about the issues of not being able to generate profit from them, the free rider problem. And then finally, explain using examples of public goods why public goods are an example of market failure. So link it to things such as missing market. Any benefits that people get from these products would simply not exist. Right guys, hit pause, put down your answers for these questions, and when you're finished, you have reached the end of the video. Thank you very much.